Oh, hey, we are live. Thank you for joining us for Studio Think Tank live chat number 7. I can't believe we're already on number 7. This is crazy. Thanks for tuning in. Of course, this is the Women's Circle, and I'm just going to start out by apologizing that you have to stare at me when I have 3 lovely ladies here with me. So I'm going to try to talk at as least as possible, except for this beginning part. I'm joined today by Mercedes Martinez of the Mark and Mercedes Show in Las Vegas.
Hello.
We also have Michelle Lewis from KMXB-FM in Memphis.
Hey there.
And of course, we have the lovely Kristen Acevedo of Wise Brother Media out in Los Angeles.
Acevedo. Hi. We work together, Danny.
We do. We wanted to kind of focus this chat more on the Women's Circle or the women and talk about everything from show prep to I guess we could say daily struggles that you guys have to face. So with that being said, I want to also encourage anyone who's viewing that you can go ahead and ask questions, live questions, right down here on Studio Think Tank. Just post a question. I'll be checking those throughout the live chat. If you have anything to ask the ladies, or if you want to add in a discussion point, please feel free. We're going to try to make this as fun as possible. So let's just jump right in. Mercedes, in your experience, what type of topics do women find most interesting? Like, what gets the phones ringing in the morning?
I think the topics that work best for us are those that are relatable, that everyone has gone through. And then I think also the topics that just make you laugh. Everyone wants to either laugh in the morning, learn something in the morning, or find something that they loathe or get really passionate about. So I always kind of revert to one of those types of emotions in the morning. So when they hear that we do something stupid and they think, oh my God, I'm so glad it's not just me, the same thing has happened to me, they have that bond with you. So I think we try to go for the relates, but we're not afraid to laugh and be silly and just, have fun. I think it's important to make sure that you're not too serious all the time, and people like to hear topics about you embarrassing yourself or just the things that bring you down to earth, and not that you're better than everyone, but that you've been in the same situation that they have.
Sure. Michelle, are there any particular bits or topics that your females listeners always respond to?
For me, in my market, I've always noticed, not even necessarily my market, but everywhere I go, the one thing, just kind of to go off of what Mercedes said, they kind of want to relate to you. And I've always found that it's the original content, the content that you don't pull from a list or whatnot, more so what you're going through. A lot of stuff, mainly relationship stuff, really gets the phone lines blowing up for us. Just today we did a topic about that, actually, about something I was possessive over, how my boyfriend wouldn't let me get into his brand new car. And just they kind of follow your life. They follow your timeline. They can relate to you, and they want to call in and share, well, this is what happened with my husband. This is something that happened with my boyfriend. And, we also kind of do this bit called What's Your Problem, which is really successful in our market because people just kind of want to have somebody there to not necessarily also talk to, but also to kind of get help. And we kind of open the phone lines to not just let you vent, but also for people to help you and give advice. So a lot of relationship stuff, a lot of original content we've found to be extremely key.
Sure. Kristen, if you were tuning into the radio in the morning and you heard a bit or a topic on air, what would make you want to stop and just stay and listen to that station? Is there anything particular, maybe the women talking more or the men, or?
Well, I think Mercedes said it. I think they both said it. Is that it has to be relatable and it has to be funny, not taking yourself too serious. I know that a lot of the stuff I've written, a lot of the conversation starters and stuff tend to be. I know I've written some that men have asked me, this seems a little too gross out. Like my PD always says this is too gross out or whatever. But I think shows like Girls or Sex and the City or whatever have shown that women do experience those kinds of things and like to talk about them. So like if I'm writing a phone starter about something that actually I used to do, which is I used to wake up in the morning in my boyfriend's studio apartment and I wouldn't want him to hear me because his bed was right up against the bathroom. So I would use the towels to pass gas. This is something that I did. And this is something that women can relate to because I'm sure I'm not the only woman who's done something similar to this so a guy doesn't hear me in the bathroom. And that's the phone jar right there. It's like, if I heard that on the air, I'd be like, oh my God, I know exactly what she's talking about because I do that myself. It's fine.
Do you turn on the water when you go to the bathroom so you don't...
Yes. I totally got called out for that, too. I totally got called out for that. The new guy I was dating a couple months ago, I did it, and he has a studio apartment, too. I did it, and he's like, you don't have to turn the water on. And now I'm like, oh, I want to because I don't want him to hear me. But it's like,
we all do it. Yes. We all do it.
We all do it. And it's like, it's that kind of thing. Like, it's that relatable, oh my God, it's kind of embarrassing, but it's still kind of funny. Like, that's totally happened to me. Like, that's what would totally make me stop and be like, I have to hear the rest of the story because, oh God, that's so embarrassing. But I totally know what she's talking about.
And many women can relate to that.
That she brings up a great point. I mean, I couldn't agree more with you on that, Kristen. It's the common misconception is that you have to be really careful talking to the ladies because you don't want to turn them off or whatever. But we have gross out conversations too. In fact, I think our conversations might be worse than some of Now, you have to be careful being on the radio and how you frame it up. But if you think that women aren't talking about stuff like that, you're crazy. And about girls, that's a prime example. The things that they address on that show, that's real life, and that's what people want to talk about.
And it's the stupid stuff too, like I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a meeting with my PD and my partner who's a man, and they've said, oh, no, women don't really want to hear about that. I'm like, and I'll fight, I'll go in there. If I feel really strongly about something, I will go for it because I think what a lot of males in this business don't realize that, not just women but men relate to this stuff. And I can remember the prime example I gave was when I first started dating my boyfriend, we had these odd little tendencies and he put his shoes on my bed and I freaked out. And I was like, that is just something that is so weird and creepy. And I can remember my PD looked at me and said, nobody's going to care that your boyfriend puts shoes on the bed. That's a you thing. I'm like, I promise you, men and women out there are these OCD tendencies where men think this is, completely fine, women think this is gross. Let's talk about it. And I think a lot of people don't realize that it just takes something as easy as the stupid stuff that people think is stupid that really blow up the phones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, and I think there's a difference, too, between gross out humor and gross experiences. And I think they get that confused sometimes. I think men in particular, it's like, women, we're not these demure sort of, reserved, like whatever, especially now more than ever. It's like we talk about this stuff. I think Sex and the City was really a breakthrough for that kind of thing. And like, we talk about this stuff all the time. When I was last night, I'm going to write one today because last night I was talking to my girlfriend and we were talking about fantasizing about dead celebrities. Is that weird? Is it weird to fantasize about someone who's dead? Because she really thinks Heath Ledger's hot, and she fantasizes about him sometimes, but he's gone. And it's like, is that okay? Like, is that weird? Like, it's you talk about this stuff, like anything like that. Like we talk about. So it's okay. It's okay to talk about that stuff to women. Like we're not going to be freaked out or stop listening to you. So. I
totally fantasize about Paul Walker. But beyond that, too soon. Mercedes JC would like to point out that he wishes you had used towels in the studio.
I hate him. He's watching live right now. He wanted to know, Kristen, if you were topless. He says you have a.
I was waiting to see how long it was going to be until we get there, and we're only 10 minutes in.
Yes.
Wishes you were topless. I wish you were topless.
That'd be the most viewers we've ever had.
It's really hot here. I apologize. It's like 100 degrees out. Okay. I'll pull this up.
All right, Michelle. So, getting back, how much of your actual life do you put on air, and how much of it is exaggerated?
It's funny. Somebody was asking me about this the other day, and I've had different viewpoints with every role that I've had, from producing to being on the air to finally doing morning drive. And I think that over time in this business, I've learned that you're doing not just yourself a disservice, but also your listeners a disservice if you're not 100% open with them. So for me, I really don't sugarcoat anything. I kind of 100%, this is me, this is real. I let it all out there, and the only time I won't discuss something is if somebody in my life personally has asked me not to. Obviously, you know your limits and you know what's appropriate and what's inappropriate, of course, but for the most part, I really think that the best thing to be in this business is an open book, because I think people, especially the listeners, can tell when you're not being real with them, and if you're not being real, how are you going to be able to establish a connection? So I really try 100% to be an open book.
Well, and so much of this business can be smoke and mirrors. So I guess I think that's probably why this question comes up a lot. But going to Kristen, I know that all of the posts that you post on Studio Think Tank, they're just gold. I mean, everyone loves them. I've had people message me and be like, "Oh my God, did she really write that?" And with that, do you take inspiration just from your real life, or do you exaggerate it? Do you exaggerate it a lot for on air? I mean, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, occasionally it's exaggerated. I think, well, first of all, yes, I do take things from my real life. If you look at my iPhone, this is a note I have in Notes of Phone Starters, and it's like, anytime something happens to me, I write it down immediately, because if I don't write it down, I'm going to forget it. And it's typically something that starts from something little. So, like, I think you can exaggerate to an extent. If you exaggerate, like, and it's just so, like, the pass gas thing, it's like, okay, that's pretty ridiculous. It's something that I did. But over-exaggerating would be like, okay, yeah, I passed gas into his towels, and then he went in there and lit a match, and then it, like, caught on fire, and his apartment, like, burned down. Do I owe him money for, like, the burned down apartment? Like, it's taking it, don't take it too far. Like, I've exaggerated certain things. Like, I think there's a point where you can exaggerate it. I'm trying to think of an example, but I think there's a point where you exaggerate it and it's just so obviously untrue that it's just completely ridiculous. So you can take something like the guy I was dating was in the bathroom for like 15 minutes. I had, you know, a whole roll of toilet paper, and when I went back in there, half of it was gone. What was he doing in there? Like, you know, and then you can, like, sort of come up with certain things that you think. But, like, it really just depends. It depends on, like, what the idea is, what actually happened, and, like, how far. You should know those limits. You should know how far you can take this.
I think there's also a really, I prefer the word embellish. I embellish things a lot, and I think there's a very big difference between exaggerating and embellishing. If I have a good idea for a topic or relatable, I think, how do I make this better? What can I add to this? Because really, we're performers, and yes, we're performing based off of our real lives, but you still want to make it interesting. So if I have something that I know it's just like a nugget, and like, I know I can do something with this, what can I do? And I kind of come up with scenarios in my mind, I'll embellish something. And I think you should. I think that that's important, because you're trying to seduce that listener to staying with you and to listen to you, and what better way to seduce them by giving them a really good, juicy, meaty story. You might have the skin and bones of it, but when you add to it with a little bit of embellishment, I think it turns it into a home run.
100%.
With that, Mercedes, should anything be off limits?
I think some things should be off limits. What you had said earlier, Michelle, about if family members say, please do not discuss this, a lot of times there will be ideas that I come up with and that I got from a friend or a family member, and I will go to them and say, hey, I really like to talk about this tomorrow. Are you cool with it? And 9 times out of 10, they're like, yeah, just don't say my name or whatever, and you do that. But with me personally, I don't really have anything off limits unless it's going to hurt someone that I care about or hurt someone that's an innocent party. Then I won't do it, but then I'll find a way to take that same scenario and apply it somewhere else, take the attention off of them. You know, I had a friend that was going through a really bad divorce, and things just got really horrible, and so I know she didn't want me talking about her divorce on the air, but I figured out a way to get it on by detracting from her and making it one of my husband's buddies going through a divorce. So same stuff, just different arena. So you can still make it work.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I actually went through, it's the exact same thing, and we can talk about it now because it's happened, but my boyfriend's brother was going through a divorce. They did not want me talking about it, and let's be honest, it's just a really great topic, something that everybody can relate to. A kid was involved. Kids are like, what I like to call one of those power gold topics. Whenever there's something that involves, a child, it's also one of those things where it's iffy and you don't want to cross a line. So a lot of those times, that's when I've done a topic, it's become a listener email. I want your advice. This is so-and-so and this is so-and-so. Or a lot of times I'll put it on the back burner, and then when it's okay to talk about it and I get the okay, a lot of people say if we throw something out and we think, oh, okay, not now, then get rid of it. But I really don't believe in that. I believe that once you let things simmer and then things, kind of calm down, and then you go to them and you go, okay, well, it's been a year. You feel comfortable about this now? I have like a bank saved of all the things that I couldn't talk about that you either turn into a listener email that you, like you say, you find ways around it. And it's just as simple as that. You figure out that line so you don't affect your relationships, because your relationships absolutely can be affected by it if you do go and talk about something.
Sure. Kristen, so kind of going back to your posts, is there anything else that you use for inspiration besides your life?
Besides my life.
Yeah, like TV shows, magazines. Is there anything in particular that you like?
Well, my friends. Again, they said, obviously I write conversation starters for the Complete Sheet too. So I've actually trained my friends now when we talk about stuff. They're like, oh, that'd be a good phone starter, and they don't even work in radio. So it's it's one of those things where I think they're starting to help me now with that kind of thing too. If something happens to them, they'll let me know. But yeah, sometimes I'll watch old sitcoms and stuff like Friends or Seinfeld, and even then, like Mercedes said, you get a nugget of something. So even if it's not the exact situation, which is so over-exaggerated and ridiculous, you can kind of grab something from it, or Sex and the City, or something like that, something with relationships, and you can sort of take from it and sort of create a phone starter. I've stopped looking at Cosmo and Glamour and magazines like that because the writing isn't very good, and I almost feel like those magazines have sort of become insulting to women with how completely stupid their ideas are, and just so base and like stereotypical women stuff. So I don't really look to those magazines for. I don't really look to magazines for help with that stuff, but I do look at TV shows and media and stuff like that to get ideas.
Well, and that's so important too, because I think that I'll tell you right now that at my old station, that's the first thing that we were told to look at for women's topics on a CHR station. It was make sure you're subscribed to Cosmo, because they know exactly what women are talking about.
I despise Cosmo. Sorry.
I don't read it either. And I think a lot of people don't realize too that you can also go past the magazines and the TV shows, like a lot of things that, and I'm sure, you guys can tell me if you do, but I know I do this. An example I can give you, I did this week. You can also look at, not necessarily the magazines, but tabloids. Like, you've got all that out there, obviously, what the credibility is. It's up to you, TMZ, Perez Hilton, Radar, Us people. But I also think it's about seeing the topic. You see something this week. My example was I read the Honey Boo Boo Sugar Bear and Mama June thing and went, oh my goodness, Mama June caught Sugar Bear, cheated on her, and he was on online dating sites. There's the nugget that Mercedes is talking about.
Yeah.
That's the nugget, and there was the topic right there. And I did, how did you catch your man, or how did you catch whoever it was in the act? And you got to be able to see that nugget and grab it. And I think that's actually a skill that, is in our job description that sets us apart.
It's a trained thing, yeah. I think Reddit too. I don't know if you've ever looked at Reddit.
I was going to say, yes, that's huge.
Yeah. Reddit
and also social media, what are people tweeting about?
Yep.
And what are they Facebooking about? I mean, I don't know how you guys are with your personal Facebook accounts, but I've befriended a bunch of listeners. If they request me, I'll accept them, and I love it. It's one of the best show prep tools ever, because they put those passive-aggressive status updates up there and never again will I trust a friend who blah, 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 blah. And then I start reading it, and oh my gosh, this is so good. I'm going to use this for a topic tomorrow. And they don't even know that I saw that, but they just, you watch what they're talking about and watch what gets people riled up and pissed off. Maybe, the coffee Obama thing, I saw tons of people, okay, well, that's something they're talking about. Ray Rice, it's all over, okay, that's something we got to talk about. Use your listeners to find out. No, this is the best time. We have access to what is important to them. Before, you're just kind of like talking about it, hoping it sticks, but now you know what they're passionate about, and so I use that to my advantage all the time.
Yeah, I tell people all the time that Facebook feeds and Facebook timelines are your best friend. Same thing with what's trending on Twitter.
I think Mercedes just hit a really good point. It's something that she said early on, too. It's anything that evokes emotion. Mm-hmm. Anything that evokes happy or angry, any sort of extreme emotion is going to be gold. That's so key. That's so key. It can't be just some sort of, plain whatever thing. It has to have, it has to hit someone hard and make them, want to respond to it. That's really the whole point of the conversation starter.
It's important as a show, and maybe this is where the woman thing comes in. If you're on a show with multiple players, I know in the past women were so concerned with just being liked on the show, because sometimes, being a woman on a radio show, you're either loved or you're hated. I think we've all experienced that at one point or another, and sometimes that'll bruise your ego a little bit, and you'll think, okay, I got to say whatever they want to hear. I got to take the nice guy stance. I can't say something controversial because then everyone's going to hate me. But what I've found through the years is that if you stick to your guns and speak passionately about what you believe in, yes, some people will get mad at you, but they'll respect you for sticking to your guns and having your opinion. This wishy-washy, well, I don't know, I just did it. Oh my gosh, that's the surefire way to get people to not just dislike you, but also to not respect you. So yeah, I make some enemies with my opinions, but they're my opinions, and I stand by them, and I can speak intelligently about them sometimes. And so I think I get respected for that. So as a woman, I think that's a big part of it. When you're coming up with these nuggets, create some conflict on the show, because people love conflict, but stick to your guns on it. Or if someone changes your mind a little bit, you can say, you know what, I was wrong. People will respect when you say you were wrong about something. Don't worry so much about being liked. That's the biggest thing that girls try to do.
Absolutely.
That's so huge. Sorry, Elle, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to, reiterate on that real quick. I was going to say, Mercedes, my thing is I've always said to anyone that asks me, I'd rather be the woman that takes a stand on the air and knows who she is versus the woman that's just, I don't know, can't pick a side, wishy-washy. And I think that you also garner a lot of respect from that, just overall as a whole. So.
Yeah. My parents did a radio morning show for 20 years in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and my mom, this was the 80s, and at the time, women were essentially, like Mercedes is saying, to not do, we're just laugh tracks, basically just there to laugh and be like, oh, you're so crazy, and she took a stance, when they started their company, Dave and Jerry, or their show, Dave and Jerry's the name of their show, but when they started, it was 1986 or something, they were like, my dad's name is Dave Jagger, so they were like, Jagger and Company will be the name of the show, because, the women, you can't, let's feature the man. And so my mom was like, screw that. And she did exactly what Mercedes did, was she spoke her mind, and soon it was, Dave and Jerry, yeah, her name's second, but it was like the women, they were an AC show, and women loved my mom, and it was because she didn't take that sort of back, I'm just going to, hear what Dave says and then laugh and, agree with him or whatever. No, I want to hug Mercedes right now because it's so true. It's so much more than just a laugh track. So much more than that.
It's sometimes, I think that when you say I speak my mind and I believe in what I say, people equate with that to, oh, she's a bitch. And it's not that. You can still do that and not be a bitch. I mean, I can have my sweetheart moments too, and when I say something, I don't sit there and I don't try to be the the man-hating. I love men. Oh my gosh! And sometimes I take the side of the man, and the women are like, "What is going on?" You don't have to be a bitch to speak your mind and to speak it intelligently. And there is that spot that you can find, and if you find it, you're very lucky. And sometimes you go into bitch category, territory, and sometimes you go into, oh, I had an idiot moment category. But if you can kind of stay in the middle of that, 90% of the time, it's all good.
And you can't be afraid of that either, because I know when I first started, that was my big fear, what people thought about me. And I battled it for quite some time, and it's true. Like, you get that. Like, I've gotten listener emails going, well, that was a really bitchy thing of you to say. I'm like, you know what? But that's my opinion. And once you get over that fear and truly knock down that wall, it's obviously a lot easier said than done. But once you get over that fear, which I think is the main hurdle, at least in my experience, you truly see people react to you. And that's the rewarding part.
That's where the respect comes.
To kind of we had a question from a listener when we first announced the chat, or not a listener. Wow, I'm on the radio apparently. From a viewer. No, Angela posted and asked, and it was this exact kind of topic about women who are, you just want people to like them on air as opposed to taking a stand. And so her question, and you've kind of gotten into it, but I kind of wanted to focus on her actual question was, what are baby steps for women who are just laugh tracks right now to kind of take a stand and not make their host like hate them, but still be able to have their own opinion?
I think that bringing content to the table is a big one. Don't be afraid to go to the host of the show and say, hey, I have a really good idea for the topic, and I might be the star of this bit. And I think most hosts are really open to that. I think male hosts want their show to succeed if you're on that type of a show, and you can't be afraid of letting someone else be the star for a while. We have other players on our show, and Mark and I are the hosts, but if our producer comes up with a bit, let him be the star. That's awesome for all of us. And so you have to be okay with that. I think speak up, come in with original content, and don't be afraid to be vulnerable. It's scary, and yes, I get it. You sometimes wonder what people are going to think about you, but I promise if you give them the chance to get to know you, there's going to always be haters. Shake it off, shake it up. They're always going to be there, but they will give you so much more respect if you just let yourself be vulnerable a little bit.
Yeah, I've learned for me the biggest thing was, and I won't lie about this, I think almost if not every woman has been in this situation at one point in the career. I've had a few men in this business make me go home and cry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. And it's real, and it's emotional, and it was always over different things, whether they didn't want to hear my opinion or my topic sucked and it got pushed to the side and it wasn't good enough. But I think that what really helped me kind of get over that, hurdle was bringing original content to the table, showing what my worth was, not just saying it, but actually proving it, going out there, not just hitting it on the air, but hitting it on the streets. And also, there are those times when sometimes you aren't so lucky and you don't have that great host. I've been lucky to have both. I've been lucky to have the host that, wants you to be the equal and the shiner, and I've had hosts that I've worked with that, just kind of don't want to. And in situations like that where, I have friends that aren't so fortunate where the host isn't as, receiving, and you need to kind of work at it, you really just need to go in there and prove yourself. And I know it sounds, it is very easier said than done, but once you prove yourself, it goes back to that respect factor. You get it. And, back to the laughing track, one example I had was, a host told the joke. I didn't think it was funny. And I've been told, you need to laugh more. And I'm like, well, I think it's funnier if I don't think the joke is funny, to kind of fire it back with a joke of my own and be able to kind of create your own person. And, if it's not funny, I don't laugh. I'll laugh and come back with something that I think is witty, but I won't sit there and just be like, ha, 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 because that is how you become that, I almost say, I don't want to use subordinate or insubordinate words, but you do kind of become that role where it's like, all right, well, you're going to roll with me on this, and this is how it's going to go. And that's kind of the scenario you don't want to ever get in or be in.
And people think you're fake. and listeners can read right through that. I mean, I know that we are kind of actors, and going back to the embellishing thing, but if you're saying something you don't believe, they hear it.
They know
that they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Mercedes, being on a show with two guys, how do you keep your show relevant for women listeners?
Well, fortunately, the two guys I work with, they are heavily involved with women, so there's always something to talk about. One is single and dating, so he usually has aspects from that side. The other is married, and so he has things to talk about with his wife. And I think that there's the divide between male and female. It's not so separate anymore. It's really not. It's very intertwined. We'll come in some days and I'll be like, oh my God, Walking Dead is on in 10 days. And we all start talking about it. I watch those shows. I love Game of Thrones. They like to watch Girls and, the chick shows. We like a lot of the same things. So to separate, this is a male topic or this is a girl topic, I don't think they're that black and white anymore. I think that a lot of these topics are applicable to men and women, and who doesn't like, persons 25 to 54 numbers or persons 18 to 34 numbers? We focus so hard on the one gender that, hey, I'll take men on our station even though we're a female targeted station. I love getting those male numbers,
And that's the one thing people I don't think realize. I couldn't agree with you more. It's one of those things where we'll be sitting and talking about it, and we're guilty of it too sometimes, where we're thinking of a topic, we're about to go on the air with it, and we're like, oh, the women are going to go crazy on this one. And then all of a sudden the phone lines blow up, and it's all men. You just never know anymore. A trigger is a trigger. End of story. Whoever it is, male, female, that's completely changed now. It's almost, at most points, irrelevant.
Kristen, going back to the crude humor that you were talking about at the beginning, what would be a topic that you would find most interesting, on a male-dominated station? Meaning that there's just it could be free beer and hot wings, or something that's just all guys. What, as a woman, would you like to tune into one of those stations and hear?
I think, who was it? Was it Kevin Holston who posted a bit or something? I can't remember who it was in Studio Think Tank. That was I love any topics about relationships, and that's probably because I'm 30 and single and dating. I always find myself, Googling, why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? Does this mean something? And I think it was Kevin that posted something that was a men's round table or something, where or ask a guy. Maybe it was Eric wrote. I forget who it was. I sort of like to hear, because I find, like Mercedes said, guys are just like the women when it comes to relationship stuff. I find myself talking to my single male friends about this stuff all the time, and they're always asking me these kinds of questions about women, and we sort of have the same questions about men. So I think anything that's, I know you're trying to get me to go the crude route because you mentioned the phone starters and stuff like that. I don't know if I want to hear crude stuff per se, but just anything that's relatable to me that has to do with men. So like Mercedes said, Game of Thrones stuff. I love Game of Thrones. I love sports. I love guy topics. I do enjoy hearing about that kind of thing, and I think that line is sort of indistinguishable. We women like the same kinds of things that guys do. So I really don't think it depends on the station. As long as it relates to me, I want to listen to it. So sure. I don't know if that really answers it. That was kind of vague.
No, it makes sense. Do either of you have anything to add, Mercedes or Michelle?
I think she was right on. I think that I like to hear guys talk about what they think about girls. I like to hear guys talk about moments that they were maybe a little vulnerable, things that, touch their hearts. Guys don't really talk about that stuff very often. So when I hear a guy kind of opening up, I like that. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hot when a guy
It is.
How he really feels about something. So stuff like that. But yeah, I just think that this whole battle of the sexes mentality, it's really very much gone away. And it's about
Yeah.
What does everyone like to talk about? You know,
Exactly.
That's what we look at.
And that's I feel the same about that as well. Like if I were listening to a male-dominated show, it's the same thing. It gets back to hookups, relationships, sex, drama, TV shows. I'm the same as Mercedes. I'm a huge Game of Thrones addict. I really think there's this like line that people are drawing in the sand that really isn't there, that really needs to be honestly wiped away. I mean, even down to like, I would love to just listen to an all-male dominated show where they're talking about like their bro night out and the dumb crap that they're doing all the time and what stupid, crap they got into. And that's the same thing for what girl can't say that she hasn't done that, gone out with her girls and had a great time and did some stupid stuff that she'd rather really not talk about in the morning. That's the stuff that I'd want to hear if I was listening to guys. It's really hand in hand.
Sure. Mercedes, can you kind of go into what your daily show prep process is like? I mean, from waking up to where you get inspiration from, etc.
Well, okay. I wake up. My alarm goes off at 3:30, and this sounds kind of crazy, but I meditate for 20 minutes. I am big into transcendental meditation, and if you have not looked into it, I think it is one of the best tools that someone in radio could have. I think TM completely has changed the way I think, and it has helped me become quicker, wittier. It helps me come up with better topics. I mean, totally look into it. That's all I'm going to say about that. So I meditate for 20 minutes, and then I'm online. What did I miss overnight? I go through the complete sheet. I go through all the big websites just so I have an idea. Once I get into the office, I kind of separate my things into, this is celebrity gossip, this is newsworthy stuff, this is topic, starter stuff. But I also come in with my own show prep sheet, which actually I have a copy because I left it last night. These are topic ideas that I kind of had on my own, relatables. I break it up into 3 categories: observations that I've had, news and events, and pop culture stuff. And this is what we have to choose from. So when we go in, we have a pre-show meeting, and we're all supposed to bring in at least 3 original ideas to the show every day. So boom, we have 9 ideas that we can choose from. And we kind of plug in as we go along. We test people's reaction for certain topics. What are the big news stories? And then like I said, I use social media to gauge and get topics from that. So yeah, that's pretty much how I do it.
Michelle?
Very similar. For me, it's nonstop. It's 24 hours. I think like most of us would be the same way. I've got a million apps on my phone, news apps, TMZ, Radar, whatever app it is, I have it all over on my phone. I always check what's trending on Facebook, on Twitter the night before. I'm always doing a thorough gauge of what's going on in news, entertainment, what's hot, write down a little pre-show list, come in the morning, scan complete sheet, talk to my partner about what I think is really hot. I'll come in with things. If anything happens to me also, I constantly, I always have my phone on me, so I will literally whip out my phone. I'm like, if I'm out at dinner and something happens, say it's like something with the waiter story, the waiter's rude, I'll write it down and I immediately ship it off to my PD and my partner, and I'm like, you will not believe what just happened tonight. I think we should talk about this tomorrow. It's always constant. So I'll come in, like Mercedes as well, I'll separate my stuff. I'll have, my entertainment news stuff. I'll have my more newsy stuff. Then I have my original ideas that I've come in with. And then, I think a lot of people tend to forget there's also, Huffington Post, Daily Mail, Yahoo News, things like that are websites that a lot of people, I think, kind of put on the back burner. BuzzFeed, I'm sure a lot of you guys use BuzzFeed, that come up with these really cool lists that you don't have to use the list, but can be a really good topic. We make a pre-show sheet. We go with a plan. If something better comes along, we kind of kick it out. And we meet with our PD daily, and we always kick out a topic, each of our own. Normally, we each kick out 1 or 2 topics, and we discuss it, and we have a serious 30-minute to an hour meeting after every show regarding tomorrow. So we always have a backup plan set up with a game plan to go in that morning, and worst case scenario, something better comes along, and we just kick it out and roll with what's going on.
Kristen, working with the Complete Sheet and seeing millions of stories daily, you know, and topics, because like you were saying, you do the conversation starters. How do you gauge which ones are going to do better for radio?
From the whole Complete Sheet?
Well, just, I mean, the topics that you pick, like whether it's conversation starters or just like, because obviously, you said you had in your phone, you just have lists of different things. Like, how do you choose which ones to go with every day?
Oh, man. Well, again, as it is with any creative thing, some days are better than others. Sometimes I'll write one that totally bombs and gets like one like on the thing take, which makes me die a little inside. But I mean, you know, you have those days. Some days you're like, or you know, sometimes you can even have an idea and you're like, this is gonna be gold. Like I'm gonna post this, gonna like get a lot of likes and love, and it's like, oh, okay, that one bombed, and then like one I didn't even think would do that well does awesome, and it's like, I think it just depends. I think it goes back to that thing we discussed earlier, which is like, as long as it elicits emotion, any kind of strong emotion, you know it'll do well. So it's like, I remember I wrote one, I think it was last year or the year before, that was like, and this actually happened to me. It was my friend who adopted a dog. She couldn't handle it 6 months into adopting it and wanted to take it back to the pound and wanted me to go with her as support. Even though I didn't really support what she was doing, she was my best friend, so I went with her to take it back. So it's like, that's the kind of thing. It's like, you know, like, people love their pets. You know, like, you shouldn't take a dog back to the pound. People are going to get really mad about that. I think it actually did fairly well when I posted on Steve Think Tank, but it's like something like that when you know, like, there's a really passionate group about a specific topic, you know that it's going to do well, and if it hits that sort of level of, like, emotion, it's pretty much gold. So
perfect.
So, yeah.
So I want to, we were kind of talking about earlier, so since I thought Cosmo was the go-to place for women, I kind of wanted to maybe throw out a couple of different topics, and anyone can answer, or all three of you, please, just different kind of content that obviously male probably hosts think that women are interested in hearing, but instead I want to know what you guys would find interesting about them. So let's start out with celebrity gossip. I think that's one of the most controversial things. Like, men think that women just live celebrity gossip, and I know some of you do. I know Michelle she posts a lot about celebrities, but at the same time, what are your feelings on celebrity gossip?
I mean, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. I think, first of all, everybody is different. Me personally, I don't know why I have an obsession with Kim Kardashian's butt. I just do. I love going online and seeing what's going on with her and the family. Just, there's something about, to me, that celebrities, I think, women enjoy, where, and this is just speaking for me personally, where it's like, there's a woman inside of us that always wishes there's a little glitz and glamour that we can have access to. And I remember one example was I was getting ready for my daily dish, and I reported the story that Kourtney Kardashian was expecting another child, and if my PD is watching, sorry. And I remember my PD said, I don't really think people really cared about that story. And I remember going in there, and, you know, I'll always state my case if I really strongly support my decision. I said, you know, it was trending on Twitter, it was trending on Facebook. I used my girlfriends as a gauge. I go, all my girlfriends were talking about it. You know, we were making jokes about it, and, you know, I stand by my decision to do that story, because even though you might not think that every woman in the world or every man in the world cared about it, the majority of the people that I knew or could see from social media were talking about it. And to me, it's like the Kardashians. People love to hate them. So I think either way, at the end of it, whether you're loving or you're hating, people are talking about it. So even if I remove myself and try not to be biased, because yes, I do love celebrity news, if I hated celebrity news, I still think I'd love to hear it and hate about it and be that person that's on the internet going, who cares? This is stupid. This isn't news. You know, it creates a buzz.
I think also it's what you do with the celebrity news. I think that you can just report it and say, you know, so-and-so just broke up, they're getting a divorce. But what I find interesting when talking about celebrity news is to hear the host's take on it. Like, what did that person think about, you know, I don't know, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie and their secret wedding? Like, yeah, you can still get the point across and tell me what the story was, but I want to hear what you thought of it, and I want to hear what the listeners think about this, or can you take a topic from that, sort of thing? Like today's big story was Kim Kardashian has a secret phone from Kanye.
Mm-hmm.
She gets so tired of hearing, or him up all in her business or whatever. And it's like, has anyone ever had a secret phone? Do you have one? And have you hidden things from your spouse? What about your phone? Would you be okay if you switched phones with your spouse for the day? Would you still be together after 24 hours if your spouse had your phone and you had your spouse's phone? Like stuff like that. Like, oh my gosh, what if I traded my phone with my husband for the day? What would he think? And I'm like, oh, okay, I could do it. Like, you can take these stories and come up with great topics and really do a lot of personality type topics where you're showing your listeners what you think of things, and I think it's great for character building. It really shows your listener who you are.
Exactly. You put your twist on it, and that's what makes it special.
Kristen, did you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I was going to say what Mercedes said. I completely agree. I think it's taking those stories and turning them into conversation starters. I personally really don't care that Angelina Jolie had 3 wedding cakes at her wedding to Brad Pitt, but it's like, you can take whatever topic. I hate Justin Bieber. I'm sorry, but like anytime I want to wring his neck. And it's like, you could turn whatever douchey punk thing Justin Bieber's doing that week, would you let your kid do this? What would you do if your kid was doing this? Whatever. It's taking those topics and making them relatable to people who probably wouldn't care.
About the cake, the 3 cakes, I didn't know they had 3 cakes, and the first thing I think of is, what kind of cake did they have? Was it like, what is the best flavor cake? Like, if you could only have 1 cake for the rest of your life, what flavor would it be? Like, I'm now thinking of, oh my God, I didn't know that. That's really, you could go with so many different things on that one,
Yeah, or even with the Justin Bieber thing, who drives you crazy more than Justin Bieber? Who do you think is just the biggest celebrity douchebag? There's so many things you can do.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay, so for the next topic, sex and relationships. What do you want to hear about them? What do you not want to hear about them?
Oh, man. Well, I think like we said earlier, like Mercedes and I were talking about before, it's like, and Michelle too, it's like, I personally want to hear what guys have to say about relationships, because I don't think that's a topic that's handled almost, I can't think of any, I don't think that's handled often on the radio. And, I really enjoy hearing like what men think about dating and what men think about women and all that kind of thing. And obviously we have our conversation starters about things that we're going through, But, I don't know. That sort of thing interests me right now.
It interests me too. Like at boot camp, when I was talking to Kristen, I know I said to her, I love your posts because I like to live vicariously through her. I'm married. I've been married for a long time. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean I mean, I have a great sex life, but I like to hear the single girl sex life sometimes because I remember that. And I can so relate to some of the things she talks about in posts. And I love it, so I want to hear that. On the other side of things in my life, there's things that happen that I'll bring on the air, like,
boom separating.
I haven't brought it up yet, but I was trying to be all like sexy and hey, and I put on like some stupid outfit and walked out, and I was wearing high heels, and it got caught in the rug, and I fell. And so like you can't be sexy after that. Like it's just so I was like, forget this, and we just went to bed. Like stuff like that. People like to hear both sides of this. You can relate to them if maybe you're living that lifestyle, but if you're not and it's a totally different lifestyle, you still like to hear it. Like, how does the other side live? How does the guy live? How does the single girl live? How does the married lady live? Stuff like that. I think it's just always fun to hear about different experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so funny listening and laughing because, with my show, it's very interesting. It's a totally different dynamic because same thing. Like I'm with a man that's married, has been married for, so many years, has a daughter that's, my age, and like we're going through the same experiences. So, it's always like, is this what my daughter's going through? Like, let's talk about this. And like off the air, we're like, okay, well, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. And a lot of it's, obviously, what's TMI. We all know what's a little bit too TMI. And, I also think format related with Hot AC, there are just some things that I cannot talk about that I would love to talk about. That would be totally fine on a rhythmic or a CHR, like, his junk. which I can't do on hot AC, but would love to. I'd be like in trouble. But you know, one of the things that I think was the most fun when I got here was telling my dating stories. Like I put myself online. I was doing the online dating thing. Men and women loved that. Loved hearing my horror stories, the progression from 1 date to 10, from, you know, seeing each other to in a relationship. A lot of it is just, you know, the stupid, like Mercedes was saying, like the trying to be sexy but your stocking gets caught, or, you know, I always joke, you know, I waited 6 dates for this guy to kiss me, and it took him 7 months to say I love you. What do you mean it took him 7 months to say I love you? It's like even the courtships, people love, it goes back to the story. People love following the stories, and that's key.
Yeah, those story arcs that go on for long periods of time, those are great for your TSL, because then they come back every day or every week to kind of get the update. So I'm a big fan of topics that kind of keep going and aren't just like, boom, a one-time, you're on and gone type of thing.
Absolutely.
And then the last thing I kind of wanted to hit on, or for the same kind of category, is radio bits, because I think that a lot of what I've heard anyway, a lot of women say that a lot of the radio kind of corny bits are just really corny, and they don't like listening to that kind of stuff, as opposed to listening to celebrity gossip or topics. How do you guys feel about like radio, like, you know, War of the Roses, or you know, stuff that the listeners may be able to find that it's not real or something?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan of those type of bits. I'm sorry, Michelle. But that doesn't mean that other people aren't. I try to remind myself that I work in radio, so I'm a little jaded, and because I know that a lot of those bits aren't real, it doesn't mean that people listening don't know that. So I don't knock them, but personally, I'm just not a fan, and I don't think our listeners, I think they would see right through it. That's not saying that listeners that don't are dumb or anything, but that's just not our shtick. I am a fan of bits that are kind of, that are silly, or that make us look dumb or silly for a while. For instance, there was a great bit we took off of a Think Tank, actually, today, about how the new thing is trying to laugh without smiling. And we videoed ourselves doing it. And it was so funny, and the videos, people are making fun of us, and we look like idiots, and we started tweeting local news anchors, and now they're sending us our videos, and I mean, try it, it's so dumb, but I don't know why we laughed about it so much, and people were talking about it. So those kind of bits I love. The battles of the sexes and the War of the Roses, I know those are like killers for some shows, and I say, you know, you do what works, but for us, it's not our thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Mercedes. You know, it's funny that Danny uses the word corny, because that's exactly, I was just going to jump in and say, that's exactly what I think of. I kind of think cheesy, corny, same thing with us. We really don't do that many bits. They just don't work for us. I think also, like you said, Mercedes, they kind of see right through it. I'm actually, honestly, not even a fan of War of the Roses, and I don't think that would change even if I wasn't jaded by the business. It's just not really my thing. I don't gravitate towards it. Battle of the Sexes, another one, I just don't get it. But the bits that we do end up doing that are few and far between are the ones that let people have the ability to get involved and tell their stories. So bits like What's Your Problem, where we let the bit focus on them. Those are the bits that have been extremely successful from what I've seen. Or Bad Boyfriend, where they get to call, or Bad Girlfriend, and, you know, duke it out over who has the worst relationship. Those are the bits that I'm a fan of, the ones that, you know, they can partake in, and not the ones that, I mean, for me, you could just tell sometimes how fake they are, and that's when I turn the radio off, to be honest with you, or go to a different station.
Perfect. And I think that kind of wraps up the main questions I had. Is there anything else that anyone would like to add?
No.
No, you're good.
No, this is great. I mean, I think Michelle and Kristen, you guys you get it, and I think it's also important as women in this industry to instead of being so ultra competitive, to like try to help each other out, work more, and I think that the best lessons I've learned in radio, I've learned from watching other women and watching how they do it. And I just really think it's a special group, and there's not a lot of us out there, and it's really important to kind of, you know, give each other a hand when we need it. And so, like, I just want to throw it out there. If any women need any help on my end, I'm happy to. Ideas. That goes for guys too, really. But it's a really special group of women that we have in radio right now, and it's an exciting time for women in this business. I think a lot of women are taking more lead roles on shows. A lot of these shows are gravitating towards female-led morning shows, which is really exciting to see. So I just say, like, you know, celebrate ourselves, and we've come a long way, and it's a cool time to be in radio right now.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, you know, I hate, you know, people thinking, or women in particular thinking, that we're so few and far between. I want to totally just, you know, whenever I hear that, go, oh, there are so many of us out there, and we are present, and we have a relevance in this field. And just to piggyback off of what Mercedes said, you know, I know for me, I'm always available. Feel free to reach out and help each other in this business, and not necessarily just kind of take a back seat. I don't think it's about that. I hear so many women say, oh, well, I kind of just take the back seat and let things happen as they happen. Don't be afraid. My biggest thing, just to go back to that fear thing, my biggest fear as a woman in this business when I first started was to have to deal with male dominance. It's not the case anymore. It's really not. If you stand up for yourself, if you say what you believe in, state your opinion, don't be afraid to do any of that, because it's going to pay off for you. And I just want women to know out there, and men too, that, like, you know, it's a different time now. Don't be afraid to just be you. Forget about, you know, gender. It's not really the case anymore.
And I think a lot of guys are so much more receptive to women on the radio now, and that's a really big deal. And as a woman, I thank all the guys who want the women to shine on their shows and become stars. And that's super cool, because it wasn't always that way. And so just to all the guys in the industry, thanks for giving women the chance and the spotlight. And women take those opportunities and make them your own. So it goes both ways. It's really cool how this industry has kind of just melted into what we were talking about before. It's not just men and women, it's talent. It's like, who's got talent and who's going to shine. And I don't think it's men versus women anymore. I think it's about, like, let's just put on an awesome kick-ass show, and whoever is the star is going to be the star. You know, it's really cool.
Let's just kick ass and take names.
Yeah.
As a final thought, Jake Kelly says that he wants every single one of you on his show with him and Tanner in Wisconsin. So just so you know, you guys always have jobs with Jake Kelly. I want to thank all of you guys for joining me again, and thank you to the panel members. This has been amazing. You can always check out this whole. If you missed any part of this, you can check it out. It's going to be on the top of Studio Think Tank all day long, and all of our past episodes too are on YouTube somewhere, and I'll post those up as well. You can look for them, or I'll post them up. And please feel free to message me and give me suggestions for what you want to see us discuss in future episodes of the Studio Think Tank live chat. I'm always open, and the reason that these things are awesome is because you guys tune in and talk about stuff. So thank you again. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cool, guys. That was it. Thank you so much.
Yay!